Talk to us a little bit about what equitable growth means to you. How is that different than what you've seen urban development in other cities is, and why is that an approach that best serves the entirety of the community of Newark?
Well, I think that honestly, equity is growth. And we have to begin to look at it that way, that we cannot grow unless there's equity. In fact, the economy can't grow unless it's inclusive. The more exclusive the economy is, the more stagnant it becomes, and things can't stay the same, so either going to go forward or backwards. We learned that in physics, right? So if it's not moving forward, it's going to be moving backwards. And the economy has to grow based on how many people you engage and involve in it, right? So how many groups of people that have been underrepresented, that have been locked out, that have been excluded from the economy, how do we bring them into the economy? People always talk about their taxes in New Jersey, but you know a surefire way to keep your taxes low? Get more people to pay them, right? Bring more people into the economy, create more opportunities for home ownership, give people a pathway into the middle class. That is how the economy grows. We know that historically the economy grew that way. And so we have to continue that moving forward. We think that equity, when we say equitable growth, it's just like a social proposition, or it's about social justice. It is about social justice. But ultimately, it's also an economic proposition. It means that in order for things to get better, that we all have to do well, or we all do well when we all do well, right? That's what that means.
So picking up on that, the developer that has one focus, okay, and that focus that it's about, can I pencil out the project? Am I willing to assume the risk? Am I willing to face the challenges of the bureaucracy to get the approvals I need? How do you convince that developer to embrace the idea of equitable growth?
Well, I think people have to see how this actually works, how it benefits, what the economic proposition what it actually looks like. And I think Newark has been an example of how people can make money and make sure we focus on equity at the same time. That is something that we've driven to point home over and over and over again. When people come to talk to us, they know they have to deal with inclusionary zoning. They know they have to have community benefits agreements that are centered around folks in our neighborhood. They know that we're talking about transitional housing, that we want to take care of folks that we need to pull up and pull into the economy. Ultimately, if you want people to begin to afford to live in your apartments or begin to move in those apartments, you have to create an economy that lifts them up, right? Right now, people are betting on the fact that the market is centered around all this kind of luxury housing because the affordability in New Jersey is outrageous, right? So home ownership is almost unattainable for many folks, not just for people who we automatically consider or think about when we say you can't live in a home, right? Most families now that are coming home from college, or most people that are coming home from college, can't afford to live in the neighborhoods or own a home in the neighborhood where they were born and raised in. Mortgage prices are anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million on average, right? They can't afford that no matter how good their education is, no matter how good their job is when they come out of school. So they're going to find places to live in Newark, in Jersey City, in East Orange now, and all of these places, or they're going to move to Delaware and Pennsylvania. I mean, that's what's happening. And until we address that, ultimately what's happening now is a short-term kind of experience that people are witnessing from all of this money that they're making around luxury housing because we're driving people in that direction. But soon that bubble is going to burst, and that we have to begin to level off those prices. So bring our kids back from Pennsylvania, bring our kids back from Delaware, or when kids are now in college and they're graduating and they're coming back, they need to not only be able to have access to a decent job, they need to have access to home, a place to live. They need to have access to shelter, a house, a startup home for a new family, right? Where can you get that at? Like certainly not in these suburban communities that are around here because it's too expensive. And the homes in Newark are increasing in price as well. So at the end of the day, we have to figure this out, and we have to create a market not just for affordable housing, but for workforce housing as well, for people that have jobs that are making too much money for subsidy, right, and not enough for the marketplace. We have to create that, or else we're going to have a serious problem in the state.
So the point you make is that as an economic proposition, and those are the terms you use, as an economic proposition, the developer sitting down with his or her lender figuring out whether the investment should be made, that social conscience serves that developer's economic interest. That's what you're saying. So let me ask you this. So the city of New York, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, so I don't want to throw you a curveball, but the city of New York recently passed massive changes to its zoning laws. And among the items that were identified were allowing for greater density in projects, addressing lesser parking needs or whatever. Does part of equitable growth and part of this thinking that the social conscience is a legitimate factor in development, does that also translate into whether this city would consider more aggressive, more user-friendly development zoning rules and laws to entice developers to take the risks associated with putting capital into the city?
Yeah, we're changing our zoning laws because we think that that's what should happen. Nationally, this is what is happening. This is what the federal government was proposing before. Hopefully they continue to propose those things. But the zoning laws have to change to allow for density. There's a housing crisis in America. This region of the country has probably the worst housing crisis in all of the country, right? It's because it's the most expensive and the most segregated, by the way. So at the end of the day, the zoning laws allows us to create density, to create opportunity for more housing in specific areas, prayerfully around transit. It allows us to repair corridors that have been depleted or distressed economically because people have moved out. So you need to create the walking traffic. You begin to create density in the downtown areas because the business community and the business model has changed. With people working from home, there are not enough people in the downtown community, so businesses that have been focusing on the 9 to 5 folks to come for lunch and hang out a little bit after to make money are losing money, and those businesses are closing as a result of that. So you have to create density. You have to create residents in a downtown community so that they could sustain the businesses. And that's the same thing along the retail corridors. In Newark, people didn't have to come downtown to shop a long time ago, right? They didn't have to come downtown. They did because they wanted to go to Bamberger's if they'd allowed them, some people, and McCrory's and Woolworths and all these other places we had. But you could go on Springfield Avenue, Clinton Avenue, South Orange Avenue, and you could shop in these communities because the density in those communities supported that. If you look at old pictures, you see the community was different because there was not a lot of abandoned properties, all this infill development that needs to happen. The retail was bustling because of the density that was there. We have to recreate that density in those communities along those corridors to bring those businesses.
One of the questions we had this morning related to that, and it was a discussion about Newark, this whole program being center city focused. Can you talk to this group a little bit about your initiatives in the neighborhoods and what you've seen as successful steps to revitalizing those neighborhoods, to recreate those economic cores and residential centers?
So first, I do want to say that any city has to develop its center, its core. That has to happen, right? The center of the city is where everyone meets. We have to, where people come from outside to come and be a part where the economy grows, it has to be developed. It's like the state not developing Newark, not developing Trenton, not developing Camden, not developing the places where commerce happens the most. It's backward. It doesn't make sense. So you have to develop the center city because people come in and out of the city and exchange goods and services in the center of the city. And the wealth that's created in the center part of the city helps you, in turn, develop the outer parts of the city at the same time. It also helps you pay for fire and police and social workers and homeless services and healthcare and other opportunities that you get from creating wealth. But since then, we've also have been developing all over the city of Newark through Westward. Our Westward redevelopment project was done a long, long time ago. We have a series of black and brown and small developers now partnering with nonprofits, partnering with CDFIs, who are taking whole swaths of land that the city is also investing in, helping to kind of parcel all of those pieces together. And so we don't have the old model, which was one person or two people buying 50 properties, 60 properties, 70 properties, and waiting for them to develop it. What we're telling people now is that first, city property has to have the first right of refusal for community-based developers. That's number one, right? Nonprofit community-based developers get the first right of refusal for all city-owned property. And that, therefore, moving forward, we can begin to pull properties together and take black and brown and smaller, mid-sized developers, put them together with nonprofits, begin to get large pieces of property and redevelop whole blocks and whole communities at a time in neighborhoods. We're on our second iteration of that right now. Prayerfully, we can speed that process up and get through council and all the other things and get our approvals to see that development taking place on places like Springfield Avenue, on Avon Avenue, like places in the West Ward as well. I'm excited about what those projects portend for the city.
And we've seen a few of those. We've seen the Paramount project has been one of those, I believe, that has done that. You've just alluded to something that I know is on the minds of folks, and that is when we do look at the downtown, we still see large swaths of land that really don't involve the displacement of people, but are either parking lots for decades or just land laying fallow. What do you think can be done to motivate these property owners to develop that land, or, as they say, get off the pot?
Well, I think it is happening. So I don't think that that's not happening. It is happening. I think what NJPAC has begun is awesome work that's going to help transform or change the center of gravity from Broad and Market to that area around Mulberry and Lafayette, where I think it needs to be. The Mulberry Commons piece that we're working with, our partners here in Prudential helping us lead the way on that, to begin to redevelop those parking lots that you're talking about around there, owned by Edison and Lopez and the other families that are working with us closely to make sure we do development. When those things happen, I think, and that's in the near future, that's going to be exciting for the downtown community, right? All of the residential space that's going to be created out of there, and the entertainment opportunity and the commercial venues, along with the bridge, the walking bridge that's going to attach Mulberry Commons to Peter Francisco Park. All of that is happening. It's on course. I'm excited about what that is going to bring. And I think that is automatically going to spur more development in and around the appendages of that area. It's going to create more development and opportunity. Hopefully these office buildings that were once office buildings, or these huge places that were these kind of commercial buildings with office on the top, becomes residential space, right? That's what my vision is, that we create more residential space in those areas and more retail and commercial retail at the bottom, up and down Broad and up and down Market. One
of the questions that were raised this morning is more about process. About we have this conclave. It's now in our second year. It's been proven to be a great forum for people to express ideas and exchange ideas. Do you see there coming a day where there's a means to bring stakeholders like this together on a more regular basis, not through this summit necessarily, to dialogue with the city on trying to get through people's differences and a global plan that everybody embraces? Because we have a lot of agendas and a lot of egos in the mix.
Really? No, absolutely. I think it's necessary. Like, everybody has their own perspective and agenda, and I think it has to be an opportunity to get as many different groups to this table and to this argument and to this discussion as possible. You're still talking about a city where the average income of residents is about $36,000, $37,000 a year. That's what you're talking about. Where home ownership, the average home is anywhere between $350,000 to $360,000. Completely out of reach and moving forward. Completely out of reach for average Newark families, completely. People always compare Newark to other cities, and I see why, because Newark is big, is growing, so they expect us to be doing what other cities are doing. We still are dealing with some of the worst inequities this state has to offer in the state, and we're still trying to manage and struggle and build on top of those things. You're talking about a city between Newark and Livingston is only 8 miles, that there's a 14-year life expectancy difference, right? That's what you're talking about. So when we have these discussions about how big the buildings can be, the development and all this other kind of stuff that we're excited about, right? I have to temper those discussions and understand that we're talking about populations of people that have lived here for a long time, that are struggling with these realities and trying to come to grips with a dichotomy that they see in a city that is becoming so big and beautiful and robust, that everybody is coming in, and they're trying to understand how they fit into this process. How am I going to continue to live in the city of Newark? So we have to, the things that we're doing, we're not doing these things so we could be in the New Yorker magazine. We're doing it as a matter of survival, as a matter of reality. We have to work on affordability because we have no choice, right? We have to work on inclusionary zoning because we have no choice, right? We have to be more creative about, we create residence at the top, create a medical center at the bottom, not because we want to be innovative. We're doing it because people need access to health care, right? So is it innovative? Yeah. People want to do it, they copy it, beautiful. But we're doing it because we have to, right? Because it's necessary. And out of our crisis comes opportunity. I don't lament about the difficulties and the crises that we go through in Newark. What I try to do is be creative and solve problems or mitigate problems and use those problems to give people more opportunity in that process and get people to understand that just because there's a problem doesn't mean we have to give up or walk away or think the world is coming to an end. It's actually, most crises is actually an opportunity to move forward. Nothing changes without pain. Transformation doesn't take place without pain.
Well, we definitely know. We definitely know you're creative. We got to see the Newark video. I think it's terrific. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this one question. Then I'm going to open up the questions. So, what ideas? What have you learned since 2014 as mayor that you hope to bring to the State House should you be elected governor of New Jersey?
Collaboration. I think that is like a secret weapon, right? I was called down to the Senate subcommittee to testify about the lead service line replacement. And I thought I did a terrible job there. I used all my SAT words and none of it worked. And I think they were looking for me to say something that I didn't have the answer for. I don't have a button in City Hall that I push to make everything get better. Like, I don't have a magic wand or trick. Like, there's no recipe my grandmama gave me to help me fix the city. Like, none of that happens. The only real way that we did these things is through genuine relationship building and collaboration and talking to people who don't all the time agree with us, right? People who know, even if they don't agree with you, he's a good guy. Like, I'm going to help this out. Look, if we got to know on any of the things that we needed for this to be changed, and I didn't tell him this because I thought it would be oversimplifying it and making people look crazy. So, like, if the local finance board tells us, no, you can't bond or use your economic, proposition to solve this problem, none of this happens. If the state legislature do not give us permission to use public dollars to change people's private land service lines, it doesn't happen. If the municipal council doesn't vote for us to go into people's houses and change their lead service lines, even though they don't own the home, 75% of the people in the city rent, lead service lines don't get changed, right? If the county doesn't agree to let us use their bonding rate, their bond rating, we are not able to borrow money at cheaper prices, right? If Port Authority doesn't say we'll give you $6 million a year for the next 30 years to pay the debt service, we don't have the money to pay the bond back. So this is ubiquitous. I couldn't tell them I prayed on it and thank God at the Senate subcommittee or that the relationships we built came through in the end. But ultimately, that's what happened. I think collaboration. Look, the heavier something is, the more people you need to be on it. I fancy myself as a gym enthusiast. I go to the gym. But when I get under the weights, I have to have a spotter. The heavier it gets, I need a spotter. There's no way you're going to solve big problems by yourself. If you're solving problems by yourself, then they are very, very, very small, right? And if your dreams don't include other people, they're too little and too myopic in the first place. And so at the end of the day, the things that we want to do, the stuff that needs to be accomplished in the state, needs a whole lot of people engaged and involved in it, across aisles, across nationality, across zip code, across religion, across how people identify themselves. And if you too narrow-minded to allow yourself to partner and work with folks who may not necessarily be invited to Thanksgiving dinner at your house, right, to help you solve these problems, then you don't want the problem solved. You just want praise for yourself.
Well, we do have a buff mayor, don't you think? I mean, you're looking kind of buff. So we're going to take a couple of questions. We have one right there. Can we bring that person a mic?
Good morning, Mayor. It's a question, maybe a comment.
Could you identify yourself?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Monica Van Pelt. I am working with the Workforce Development Board. And so my question, someone asked earlier about the public school system and about workforce. And so I'm on contract with the Workforce Development Board, and I work with boards to help them understand the capacity that they can actually tap into by really understanding WIOA and other investment
Right.
dollars, right? And so in doing so, I'm trying to touch mindsets so that we can transform not just the systems that we feel may be inequitable or unjust, but to transform the hearts of the people that make the decisions, right? And so when we're talking about workforce development, and we look at, if you really niche down into the numbers, we see that people will come into the city or the cities where we've gotten the gentrification, and we'll see that they have gotten jobs, right? Because there are inclusionary zoning laws. But when you look at the jobs, have they been good jobs? Have they been quality jobs? So I'm on the compliance side of it, and so what I'm looking at is impact. So as we're talking about transforming the city, and I'm born and raised in Newark, but I don't live here anymore, but I'm glad to be back.
Right. Well, we welcome you back.
But when we talk about transforming the city and we're talking about bringing on workforce development, I want to change the narrative of what workforce development is. It is not just give somebody the warehouse job or help with expungements. We have all of this happening, right? But we have talent here in Newark.
Yeah, we do.
I was a talent of Newark, right? Science
Okay.
High, graduated from UPenn. But here's the thing. I didn't find my job. I worked at First Fidelity, 550, loved it. But I didn't get the job because I was a Newark resident. I got the job because I was at the Wharton School of Business. They were there recruiting when they had me all along, right? And so that happens where you have the answer sitting right inside of your realm. But we can't get to you because there's no pathway. And so I want to make sure that as we're talking about bringing in jobs, which jobs? Are we talking about the concession jobs, the parking jobs? And I'm not minimizing what we're doing because this has to be done. And I think we talked about that at the league. This stuff has to be done. But we can't forget that the downtown belongs to Newark, right? And so when we talk about equity, when we talk about giving an equitable interest, remember first that Newark invited the developers here. So that was the original part of equity, that people invited you here to make money, to create economy, yes, but they invited you. So when we talk about equity, who's determining what that looks like, right? You guys said we've been here every year and we don't have answers as to why this is not taking off. And I can tell you, you have yeses from all the stakeholders because it's like confirmation bias, because every stakeholder is coming with the same motivation. The problem is you don't have all the stakeholders, in my opinion, right? And so, I'm not trying to make an impact statement. I'm really just trying to say we really have to be honest and acknowledge what is happening here. And so you won't be able to get off the ground and get it all fully done because you don't have buy-in from the people that have stayed here to survive. So we're talking about thriving, but which Newark residents are going to thrive? Is it the new Newark resident who's coming in, or is it the resident who stayed here? I've always wanted to live, work, and play where I work, but I couldn't do that because the only thing is I couldn't find jobs that represented how I felt about what I wanted to live like. So I had a great job, right? I went through a great professional banker training program. I'm in commercial lending. I'm right back in the building where I came here as a commercial lender years ago. I'm doing private placements and all those things, but I couldn't afford to be in the town where I was born and raised and where I lived. So I had to move to Middlesex County, which means I ultimately got a job in Middlesex County, and that's great. But we need to make sure that the people that are born and raised here are able to come here, live here, and play here. So when we create this downtown mecca, who is the recipient, right? And we talk about, I know that change, this is the time for change, and change requires pain. but it can't be that the pain is placed in one place and the benefits are placed in another.
Right. Well,
So
let
there's
me
gotta be
respond.
pain.
Yeah, so,
Let me
so
respond.
you got
Thank
the
you.
question.
Sorry, I said a whole lot.
You got the question.
Yeah. So one, I agree with that, and I don't think that that's what's happening. I don't know what your personal experience is, but I don't think that that's happening. So Newark 2020 is what we've done with the corporations down here, where we specifically hired 2,020 Newark residents in places like Rutgers University, Beth Israel, all of these other places. And they weren't low-level walk-in jobs where people, swept the floors and did all those other kind of things. These were jobs that were geared towards, because we understand that, geared towards identifying Newark residents that had degrees, right? That wanted to participate in the economy. I would also invite you to go to the re-engagement center right now and begin to see the training that's going on in the re-engagement center for Newark residents that is way beyond warehouse work. That's dealing with flying drones. That's dealing with repairing aircraft. That's dealing with building trades. All of the folks. So there's some students in Newark who graduated from Newark High School that went through the Newark Trades program that are actually working on the sites building the buildings in the city of Newark now, that graduated from high school in Newark, that's working on building those buildings. So these are not people that we're hiring to do security once the building is built. These are the people that are building the buildings. Or taking a group like Youth Build, and taking Youth Build, who are students who did not finish high school, students who have had incarceration in their history, who are now going through trades that are building houses in the city of Newark today for residents of Newark to move in those houses who once lived in Section 8 housing, who used their Section 8 voucher and now moved into a home, right? I'm waiting for the ooh and the ah on that one.
Yeah.
The Section 8, who took their Section 8 voucher and who lived in the projects and now live in a home that was built by Newark residents themselves, right? To me, that's the kind of innovation and opportunity that the city needs. Can it be more widespread, bigger, larger? Everything could be better, 100,000%. But I think you missed the mark when you say it's not happening at all and that these stakeholders aren't at the table, because they are, right? Is everyone at the table? Probably not. And we need to figure out how to bring more and more people and get more and more people engaged in those processes. But they're absolutely positively happening. Or let me finish.
Yeah.
Or all of the black and brown developers, right? Some who are even in this room, right? Who had nothing, zero, who have used the process that we put together, who are now doing 3 and 4 projects simultaneously as we speak. I saw Abby in here. I saw Abby from Abby's in here. Here's a guy who had a restaurant in another city who was from Newark, who now has closed that restaurant, built his own building, and put a restaurant at the bottom of the building he built that he owns now, right? These are stories that are taking place in this city that are innovative and heartfelt stories based on people's engagement with city government and the private sector. So I don't want to leave the private sector out, because the private sector helped make these things happen. And because we put we put expectations on them, they partner with these people and make these things a reality for us, right? So I got to shout Bob Okereke out from the New York Giants. When we built one of those houses, he fully furnished it. He came in from the New York Giants and fully furnished it to a family last year who got to have Thanksgiving, her first Thanksgiving meal with her family in a house she owned that lived in the projects the year before. So these are real stories based on real people, right? So I'm happy about that. But I don't want to belittle what you're saying, because what you're saying is absolutely real, right?
So I
Shout out to everything that is happening. I just want to make sure workforce development stays as part of this,
Oh, absolutely, it has to be.
the partners that are coming in, because all of those things, they are happening. And we just have to stay reminded that it has to be beyond just that level of what, I'm trying to change the mindset of what workforce development is. It is a continuum of career pathways across the entire spectrum, not just entry level. So.
Well,
I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I appreciate
So we don't have time for any more questions. We do have a greeting from Philanda Nixon, who is the senior executive of the Newark Business Regional Partnership, which is the hub for the kind of business communications. And she has greetings for the mayor. And before he leaves the stage, she wanted to give her comments here.
Good morning. I think it's still morning. So good morning. I am the recently appointed president and CEO of the Newark Regional Business Partnership, and very thankful to have this opportunity to welcome you and make remarks. So as the president and CEO of the Newark Regional Business Partnership, I'm proud to represent the premier chamber of commerce serving the greater Newark region. For more than 150 years, NRBP has been a cornerstone of Newark's business community, evolving alongside the city to meet the changing needs of our diverse membership. Today, NRBP stands as a broad-based organization representing approximately 300 businesses, from corporations and small enterprises to educational institutions and nonprofit organizations. Our mission is clear: to strengthen the greater Newark business community through connections, resources, and advocacy. Our impact extends beyond Newark's borders, with about half of our members located outside the city, but all sharing a vested interest in Newark's success. This regional approach allows us to leverage varied perspectives and resources to drive economic growth throughout greater Newark. We focus on connecting members through brokered introductions and networking events, informing our community via high-quality programs and timely communications, advocating business-friendly policies and projects that enhance our region's competitiveness, and promoting economic activity and collaborations that build a stronger Newark. I'm excited to announce that our 501c3 affiliate, the Renaissance Newark Foundation, will be launching the Navigating Newark initiative in 2025. This innovative program is designed to connect newcomers to the city's core elements, including its businesses, institutions, and vibrant communities. The Navigating Newark initiative will feature interactive workshops, networking events, and city tours. It aligns perfectly with the themes of today's Newark Summit, as it aims to showcase why Newark is an ideal place to live, work, study, and prosper. By fostering deep connections between individuals in Newark's economic landscape, we're empowering participants to become active members in our dynamic community. Mayor Baraka's progressive approach to governing aligns closely with NRBP's goals for economic development and community revitalization. His administration's focus on reducing crime, addressing affordability, and implementing groundbreaking programs complements our efforts to create a booming business environment in the city. So we at NRBP are very proud to be working with Mayor Baraka, the city's visionary leader, who's dedicated to its progress and prosperity. Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Baraka, for being here with us and taking the time out of your very, very busy schedule. I think it's been very informative, and I hope this was a good forum and platform for you to share your views on development and beyond. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.